Real quick before I get started, just real quick before I get started, please, if you can make sure that your microphone is muted, that way we can make sure that everybody can hear Jeanette and can focus on what she's saying. So, good afternoon and good morning if you are out west. Welcome to Cataloging in AI, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's going to be co-presented by University of Pennsylvania's Biddle Law Library, the private law librarians and information professionals, and the technical services interest sections from AALL. I'm Ellen Reese, and I am the head of metadata and systems at the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I will be your moderator today, and I'm going to be joined by Zephyr Dove, who will be monitoring our chat, and Brianna Himshoot, who is going to be our Zoom host. First, I just want to go over some housekeeping. As you may have already seen from the message that popped up, this presentation is going to be recorded. The recording and the slides are going to be emailed to registrants after the presentation, and also they will be given to the appropriate SISs and AALL to get them posted on the My Community pages. We're going to ask that you do hold all of your questions until the end. During the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and put them in chat. Zephyr will be here to go ahead and keep track of them. We are going to ask that if you possibly can, we would like all of the questions in chat, just because we think that it'll make it a little bit easier to keep track of things, but we will let you know if we need further explanation, and we can do that over audio. There will be a Q&A portion at the end. And finally, any questions that we don't get to, we'll collect them and we will email participants after the presentation with Jeanette's answers. So now about our star. Jeanette Mazer is an electronic services content analyst with Baker Hostetler Library Team. She has over 15 years of experience in technology and more than 12 years of experience across various library settings, including public, academic, and private. She earned her Master of Library and Information Science degree from Kent State University. Today, Jeanette is going to take us on a trip detailing practical uses of artificial intelligence and technical services work. She's going to give us a solid explanation of AI and concrete examples of what it can and cannot do. She will also reference a brief survey that she conducted with law librarians on different aspects of the utility of AI in cataloging. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Jeanette.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for you guys to join us today. Can everyone see the AI and cataloging? Thumbs up? Okay, good. So like they said, my name's Jeanette Mazer. We're going to be talking about AI and cataloging, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So just a quick overview, although Ellen did a great job. We're going to do AI basics, just lay a foundation. We're going to do some MARC basics. If you're not a cataloging librarian, just going to do some real, again, basic stuff. We'll talk about AI and MARC together. We will talk about OPACs with AI, and then some of the not so great features of AI. So we're going to do a quick survey. If you guys have used Poll Everywhere, there is a QR code at the top, or you can go to pollev.com/jmazer984. This is one of the free versions, so only the first 25 people can get in. If you don't get in, feel free to throw your answers in the chat, and maybe Z will kind of give me a breakdown of what everyone's answering. Again, if you don't want to use this, feel free to throw your answers in the chat as well. So once I get 25 responses on here, so this first part, we're going to ask 3 questions, and then we'll ask more a little later in the presentation. So if you did get in, leave it running on your phone or computer, whatever you logged into. This is just a practice question. And again, feel free to throw your answer in the chat as well. Would you rather travel the world for free for a year or have $50,000 to spend however you please?
Oh, Jeanette, you are muted.
Okay, great, thank you. So a lot of you looks like you would rather have $50,000, but a good amount would like to travel the world for free. Next question. What's your familiarity level with library cataloging? Beginner, intermediate, advanced? Again, throw your answer in the chat if you didn't get in. So it looks like right now we have a fair amount of intermediates, but we have some beginners and some advanced. Next question, what is your familiarity level with AI technology? Good. Okay, so we have a lot of beginners, some intermediate, some advanced. So again, we have kind of a nice mix across the board. Again, if you have poll everywhere open, just leave it open. We're going to come back to it. So encyclopedia story. There is a mom who had a 13-year-old son who wanted a new iPhone and was just pestering her nonstop, as 13-year-olds are known to do. While they were cleaning out the mom's storage unit, she saw her old encyclopedia set. She told her son, using only the encyclopedias, "Tell me who was the prime minister during World War I, and I will get you that iPhone." He quickly walked over and pulled out the W encyclopedias. And the mom was like, "Oh, shoot, looks like I'm going to be out $900. But no worries. He was trying to look up who was the prime minister during World War I. This kind of goes to show how searching has changed a lot. When I grew up, searches were mainly like keyword or topic searches, like we would do in an encyclopedia. Nowadays, kids search semantically using full sentences. When Google first came on the scene, I was working as a public librarian, and a lot of other librarians were worried. Why would you need librarians when you have infinite knowledge at your fingertips? And we quickly realized librarians were integral. We were the ones who could do the advanced searches using Boolean phrases, keywords. We were the ones who sifted through the noise and found the legitimate information, right? Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's accurate. I've been to some conferences recently, and the same thing is kind of popping up with AI. Should we be worried about our jobs? You know, why would they need us if they have a tool that can do the exact same thing? But as I've looked into it, I found the same thing is true, right? Librarians are going to be the ones that are in charge of doing the searching, being the prompt engineers. We're going to be the ones that cut through the noise, cut through the hallucination, and find the accurate information. So as technology changes, it's really up to us as librarians to pivot and figure out how to best serve our library and its users. Before we get too deep into this, I want to talk about Clarivate, who released the Pulse of the Library recently. Clarivate's a company that provides products and services to help librarians modernize and improve the user experience. They release this every year. It came out in September of 2024, so just a couple months ago. And it's a global survey of academic, public, and national libraries that assess trends and measures impacts of technologies such as AI. So obviously AI was a big topic for their survey. The first thing I wanted to point out in their survey was AI adoption is a top tech priority. AI-powered tools for library users and patrons top the list of technology priorities for the next 12 months, according to 43% of respondents. But there's also concerns. We're going to talk about some of these today, like lack of expertise, budget constraints, privacy and security, misinformation, bias, resistance to change. And then finally, they asked areas where users felt AI would have the most impact. And cataloging and metadata came up as third on the list. So it kind of makes this an important topic. If you want to look more at the survey, there's a link at the bottom of the slide, which will be sent out to you after the presentation. There's links to everything on here. So if you want more information, if you want to do more deep dives, more research, feel free to click through them. I did the research, but I'd love for you to continue it. So, AI basics. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of AI tools out there. There are some for creating music and for creating tech, or creating songs, for creating artwork. We're just going to cover 3 of them today. We're going to focus on ChatGPT, Copilot, and Cataloger GPT. But I wanted to give you other options. They're all free to use as of right now. Another option is Gemini.google.com. One is Claude AI, and Perplexity. When I first created this presentation a couple of months ago, Perplexity was the only one that was showing its sources. When you asked the question, it would tell you where it was getting its ideas from. Copilot has since started doing that, and then ChatGPT recently started as well. So things are changing on a daily basis, it feels like. So AI prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is basically asking the right questions. So I've worked in public, private, and academic libraries. And I swear I've had this question in every single library. Question that always comes up is, can you help me find the book I read with the red cover? You guys have had that, right? So if you were to ask this to ChatGPT, give me a list of books with red covers, it would give you a very generic list. So being able to understand the desired outcome and be specific and include as much information as possible when asking questions to a large language model is really important. So if I were working at a public library, I might say, well, if I was working on the reference desk, I'd ask the patron more questions. But you'd want to include as much information when you're working with a large language model or AI. So you'd say something like, show me books with red covers that were written in the past 10 years that are currently popular with from the young adult fantasy genre. And it'll give you a list. And the one I was thinking of was A Court of Thorns and Roses. This also happens in private law libraries. So I had just moved from academic to a private law library. And I swear in my first couple of weeks, a partner came and asked the question, can you help me find the book I read with the red cover? And I was, I was like, what? I just laughed. I didn't think this comes up. It comes up everywhere. There's no escaping it. Um, so if I were to work with ChatGPT or a large language model, I'd ask a question similar to show me legal books with red covers from Lexis, because almost always they're from Lexis with it, if it has a red cover, involving Texas, because the partner was from Texas. When I did that, it gave me a list, and the one I was looking for was Texas Law of Oil and Gas. So while you want to include as much information as possible, be as specific as possible, don't include too much information. We have all gotten this email, right? The one that is just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, just a wall of text. When I get these emails, I tend to skim through them and pick out what I think is most important and respond accordingly. AI does the same thing. If you give it too much information, it picks through and pulls out what it thinks is most important, which may not actually be what's important. So be specific, include as much information as possible, but don't include too much information. If you get stuck, you can also ask AI to help you. Meta prompting, say, tell me what else you need to do. You need to do this. So back to the red covers, if I said, tell me what else you need to do this, it might give me ideas like include plot or themes and character setting, genre specifics, time frame. And finally, if you're doing researching, make sure you ask for sources, because we've all heard about this, right? AI is well known for hallucinating. Elon Malik from Wharton said ChatGPT is an omniscient, eager to please intern who sometimes lies to you. Not great. So we're going to see as we go through this presentation, when we create MARC records, they're well known for creating hallucinations. So anytime you're working with AI, it's really important to trust but verify. Trust that it's giving you the best possible answers, but it's not always true. Always verify everything. In the legal field that we've all seen, I think all of them, Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg, have trackers for this, but you know, different jurisdictions have different rules for using AI. So like in Southern Ohio, you currently can't use AI. If you turn in anything that's been done with AI, you can get in a lot of trouble. For other jurisdictions, we'll say you can use AI, but make sure you double check your sources and cite that you used AI. So being able to keep up with the rules and regulations is also really important. Next up, the good MARC record creation with AI. How many people remember these? The card catalogs. I remember learning how to use a card catalog in elementary school. It was an experience. So MARC actually stands for Machine Readable Cataloging. The information from these old card catalogs, you couldn't just simply type it into a computer and poof, produce an automated catalog, right? The computer needs means of interpreting the information found on those little cataloging cards, which is kind of where MARC records come into play. The MARC records have little signposts before each piece of data, like title, author, call number. The place provided for each of these pieces of bibliographic information is called a field. So again, I know most of you are probably cataloging librarians, so feel free to phase out for this part. We're just going to go over real quick some MARC basics. On the right is a MARC record from the Library of Congress for Black's Law Dictionary 11th edition. I'm just going to point out some of the important fields that we're going to look at today. So in the OXX fields, the 020 fields are the ISBN numbers. 050 is the Library of Congress classification number. 083 would be the Dewey Decimal, if we had one for this. And 100 would be the author information. Because this is a dictionary, it has an editor, and he's actually in the 700 field. So we don't have a 100 field in this example. Sorry. The most important field is the 245. This is the title of the book. You think this would be obvious. I tried to create a record once without it for some reason. I have no idea why. It about broke our catalog. It was not great. So 245, just remember, most important field. The 250 is the edition. 300 is the physical description. And you'll notice as we go through these, some of them have subfields like the bar A, bar C. And these subfields help break down the main field. So in the 300 field, we can see subfield A is the extent of the item. So how many pages, start page. Subfield C is the dimensions in centimeters or millimeters. This, again, cataloging is so interesting because it changes from item to item. So for it's in centimeters, but if you have like a round item like a globe or a DVD, it's in inches, which is kind of weird. Sorry, I get so excited about cataloging. The 400 fields are series statements. 500 is notes. 600s are the subject access fields and subject headings. We're going to skip 7, 8, and 900s, but 700 is personal names, additional authors, corporate names. 800 is series added entries, and 900 is reserved for local implementation. So like stuff specific to your local library. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the vendors and what they're doing. A lot of our vendors are trying out new things with AI, and some are doing great and some are trying. OCLC was trying to create a world share AI, which was something where it would use your search history and return books based on that using AI. When I was looking this up in 2023, I was super excited about the idea, but when I went back for my presentation to see where they were at, they had deleted their web page. So it looks like it's something that never really came to fruition or is on the back burner for right now. Library of Congress has something called LC Lab, where they've created a planning framework to support the responsible exploration and potential adoption of AI at the library. And then they have like a little breakdown of this where they talk about how to explore and work with AI in libraries. Again, there's a link at the bottom, so feel free to look more into this when you get a chance. The one I was really impressed by was Ex Libris. Ex Libris is creating something called an AI-enriched MARC record. The Ex Libris AI metadata generator, what they're doing is they take a full text PDF of a book and they upload it to AI, and AI pulls out three things: the language, the summary, and the subject headings. And then it creates an enriched MARC record. So here's an example. You can see the 041 field, it said it was in English. It created an abstract, so kind of a summary of the book. And then in the 650 fields, it gave Library of Congress subject headings. You'll also notice that for each of these, it created subfields. So for 520, 650, it created a subfield 7 to let you know that field was generated by AI. And then it also created a 588 field, where it says part of the metadata in this record was created by AI based on the text of the resource. So we're going to jump back to Pull Everywhere. So if you were in there, we're going to jump back. So if you don't know cataloging, that's okay. These are all subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. What field do you think should note that mark record is created by AI? The 035 field, which is system control, 588, source of description, 590, which is the local note, or other. And again, feel free to throw your answers in the chat. See if you're seeing anything really interesting. Feel free to unmute and just yell it at me. Okay, we got 21, that's pretty good. Oh, 22. So it's mostly 588s and others. Okay, next up, next question is, assuming AI added data to a mark field, should there be a subfield notation? Yes, no, we only need the main field, like 035, 588, or other. Or other, you have some other feelings about this. Okay, the majority of answers were yes. Actually, all the answers were yes. that is the first. I presented this a couple of times and I've never seen unanimous across the board. Okay, and this last one, if you're on Poll Everywhere, you just have to sort them. If you're in the chat, just throw the top answer. So where do you think AI would be most helpful in creating mark record fields? Do you think it's AI would do the best job at picking the language, writing a summary, call numbers, or subject headings? This is interesting. It's funny, every presentation there's different answers. And again, there's no right or wrong answer because there haven't actually been any standards set yet. Or last time I checked. They might have set a standard. Again, AI is changing on a almost daily basis. So again, this is something that's definitely worth looking into. Okay, so most of you said summary, call number, subject heading, and then language. Oh, language came in third. Interesting. Okay, we're going to jump back to our presentation. Oh no, this one? Yeah, good job. Okay, so I asked the same question, and you may have responded to this. I asked it to the AALL message boards, both for private law libraries and technical services. And I got 150 responses. Guys, I would have been happy with 20. I was blown away. So if you responded, thank you. I appreciate it. So some of the questions we asked at the beginning, what is your familiarity level with AI technology? 61% were beginners, 37% were intermediate, and then we had a couple of 1%ers that were advanced and experts. On the flip side, we had a lot of advanced and expert library catalogers respond. But then there were also intermediate and just a few beginners. The majority of the respondents were from academia, 58%, but we had 20% from public, 14% from other, and 8% from private. I think the others were mostly like county law librarians. So same questions we asked. Assuming AI created a mark record, what field should note the record is created by AI? Like you guys, most of them were 588s. There were a few 035s and 590s, and then 21% said other, kind of how we did. It was mostly 588s and others. For the others, I did a breakdown at the bottom. 8 people responded with 040. Someone said the 588 field would describe the resource, not the mark record. 590 is a local note and should not be retained in an OCLC master. For others, some people just said none. AI should not be used this way, which made me laugh. AI should not be used for cataloging. I don't disagree. 3 people said the 900 fields, and then there were a couple of miscellaneous comments like this hasn't been decided by the PCC, which is the program for cooperative cataloging, so far as I know. And one person said 883, which is the metadata property. Assuming AI added data to a mark field, should there be a subfield notation? 57% said yes, where you guys are 100%. Um, 31% said we only need a main field. Only 3% said no. And then we had some others again. Most of the others were maybe or depends, although we still had 3 people that said none. AI should not be used this way. I like that they stuck to their guns. And then the last question, where do you think AI would be most helpful in creating MARC records? The top 2 were language and summary, and then call number and subject headings came on after that. So back to Ex Libris, um, we talked about how they were doing language, summary, and subject. But when they first started in August of 2023, they were also doing Library of Congress classification and Dewey Decimal classification. The problem they found was that it would do good for the big subjects, so technology, home and family management, food and drink. But everything after the decimal point, it really struggled with. So trying to get it down to health food cooking did not do great. So they decided to scrap it and focus on language, summary, and subject. With the subject fields, they did find that AI would choose a subject that looked correct, but the Library of Congress subject heading defined the term more narrowly. One of the examples that I like that they shared, and this is all from their video. Again, the video is at the bottom. Definitely worth watching. So for the Philosophy of Human Rights, which is a book that explores universal human rights, the AI chosen subject heading was universalism, which was incorrect because the Library of Congress subject heading defined universalism as a religious belief that all people will attain salvation. Since I started this presentation about a month ago, Ex Libris actually released this in their ALMA. If you don't have it, you can always reach out to your rep and they can turn it on. You can now create new records by going to new and create with AI Assistant. Or you can enhance your current records by opening up one, going to editing actions and enhance with AI Assistant. So when I started this presentation, they were just trying to figure out how to make it work. And as of today, they've actually released it. So it's so exciting to see them go from like hypothetical to this is actually happening. In the same video where they were talking about creating it, not actually releasing it yet, they talked about bias, and Elizabeth York talked about it. So I'm going to steal her slide because it was spectacular. I can't find a better explanation of bias. So Elizabeth York is a electronic resources librarian at Rutgers. And she talked about how when they're doing AI, there is bias. They found AI replicates biases found in the books themselves. How many people remember reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer in middle school or high school, whenever you read it? Right, me too. The problem is if you were to upload this text to something creating metadata or enriched metadata or a summary, it might use incorrect language. Language that was appropriate at the time would now be considered dated or insensitive, stuff you wouldn't want in your cataloging records. So you have to be careful with that. They also found that AI, when trying to summarize a book, might endorse them inadvertently. So in the example in the Ex Libris video, 21 Days to Master Numerology, AI said it was a self-help guide to utilize the principles of numerology to provide readers with insight into their inner selves and life plans. Whereas catalogers, we know it's better to attribute these claims to the author. So the author aims to help readers gain self-awareness, ... Another problem was library standards. So library standards such as LCSH, LCC, DDC were not without bias. In the Library of Congress, one example is North American Indians. Indians are both still terms that are available to use. They haven't been scrapped, or so AI might accidentally pull them where we know more appropriate terms would be Indigenous people, Native Americans. So actual terms themselves are still available, yet outdated. We wouldn't actually use them. Finally, Elizabeth says in her presentation, as a human, when I describe resources, I take extra care with resources that document or address topics related to human rights abuses, genocides, atrocities, and disasters. Can AI be as equally careful? So let's actually see a couple of examples of this. I've been in some other conferences where I've seen these examples and they've never worked out. This is Black's Law Dictionary, 11th edition. On the right-hand side is the Library of Congress. The left-hand side is what ChatGPT pulled up. So the first thing you'll see is the 020 field. It looks real, 9780. Sounds like a real ISBN number. It is completely made up. If you try to look that up, it's not real at all. You can also see in the 035 field, made up because it ends in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's definitely not real. In ChatGPT for the Library of Congress call number, you can see it has 2023 when it should be 2019. In the 100 field, you can see it puts Brian Gardner as the author, even though he's the editor and probably should be in the 700 field. Technically, this isn't wrong, but the fact that they put him in 100 and 700 is a little confusing. The 260 or 264 field, which again is a whole nother problem, you can see it used the wrong date. Again, it used 2023 instead of 2019. The 300 field, everything was made up. Start pages, total number of pages, centimeters, just straight up hallucinate. Copilot actually did a little bit better. So same thing, Black's Law Dictionary, 11th edition. Copilot, again, put Brian Garner in the 100 field, which isn't technically wrong, and they didn't put him in the 700 field, so it's okay. The 300 field, again, it got the start pages and total number of pages wrong, although it got centimeters right, so partial credit. And then finally, there's a new tool out there called Cataloger GPT. It uses ChatGPT and looks up mark records, or it helps you create mark records from there. So again, same thing. I put Brian Garner in the 100 field, not technically wrong. Everyone else is doing it, so why not? The 300 field, the start page, total number of pages were wrong, but again, centimeters were right. Okay, so summaries. I asked the different tools to write a 3-sentence summary for Black's Law Dictionary 11th edition. Again, this is where prompting is really important. So originally I just said, write a summary of Black's Law Dictionary 11th edition. And it gave me multiple paragraphs and like 7 bullet points, all stuff you couldn't put in a cataloging record. So I had to say, write me a 3-sentence summary of Black's Law Dictionary 11th edition. You can see ChatGPT gave me a very generic, it could be any kind of law dictionary response. And where Copilot gave me more information, and it actually cited the information at the bottom. So Copilot kind of wins this round. Although I did create this before, the pro version of ChatGPT 4.0 came out. What's different about this on the pro version is it has a search button. When you click on that, it'll give you sources. So again, a couple of weeks ago, I did this slide and I said, write a 3-sentence summary of Black's Law Dictionary 11th edition. Again, it looked more informational, but when I clicked on sources, the very first source in the list was wrong. It was for Black's Law Dictionary 10th edition, which made me worry about the accuracy of this one. So I still think Copilot wins. So even with sources, the very first source was wrong. So good try, ChatGPT. We're going to create a mark record together. In the chat, why don't one of you throw a book title in there? We'll just ask it to create a mark record. And then Z, just tell me which one you like the best. Or Ellen or whoever. We'll write a book. Let's see. I see Poisoner's Notebook. Let's do that. Although Connor's Federal and Civil Forms is pretty good too. We'll do this one. Let me close the chat or else I'll get distracted. Okay, so create a mark record for the book, Poisoner's Notebook. And again, it would help if I gave more information like an edition or an author. Sometimes the ISBN number helps. So you can see it says, here's an example of a mark record for the Poisoner's Notebook. It doesn't give us an ISBN number. It just says ISBN, which actually I like better. Instead of making something up, I'd much rather. Um, so it kind of changes question to question. So if I were to re-ask this question, it might make up some of this information. So let's try it again and see if it actually fills in all of the information instead of just giving us placeholders. Oh, honestly, I like those placeholders a little bit better. So I'll ask it again. Okay, so it did give us, so you can ask the same question 10 times and you're gonna get 10 different answers. So let's see how accurate this call number is. We're just gonna copy it and paste it. Oh no, I left an A on there. Sorry, guys. So this does not look like it's the right ISBN number. So maybe we should have gone with the first one because it definitely hallucinated an ISBN number. John Doe is the author. That's probably not correct. Again, 250 pages, maybe. A lot of this is kind of trust but verify. We could also try turning on search and running it again. The problem with search, though, is it gives you, for MARC records, it gives you sources, but the sources are more like, this is how you create a call number. Although this did come back with some better, oh no, it got stuck. Sometimes it does this where it gets stuck and just starts duplicating. Okay, we're just gonna stop. So anyway, that's fun. Cataloger GPT is created. You have to have a pro account of ChatGPT. You can just Google Cataloger GPT and it will add this to your sidebar in ChatGPT. We're going to ask the same question and see if it does a little bit better. So it's been trained by someone who is a cataloger. Oh, and it tells you to give more information about it. Interesting. That is new. So it can't actually answer. One of the fun things about Cataloger GPT is that let's go back. It gives you some other options that ChatGPT wouldn't, because it's specific to catalogers, like create 3 Library of Congress subject headings for whatever content. Identify the correct errors in this MARC record. So you can give it a MARC record and it'll okay, so that's enough time with that. I was trying Copilot today and it wasn't letting me get into it, so I'm not gonna waste your time on that. Okay, on to OPACs, online public access catalogs. So far as I know, there's nothing out there quite yet. No vendors have published anything yet, but the end goal with OPAC is to have an AI-driven recommendation system where it uses your search queries, so what you've been looking up, your browsing history, what you've checked out, and give you make recommendations based on that. Obviously, this would need to be self-contained. You don't want your private user information going out to a large language model where it's available to everyone else. Before we talk more about OPEX, I've heard of people taking their catalog and putting it into ChatGPT. We have some limitations at Baker Hostetler with that. So instead, I'm going to show you how you can fix up your catalog using Copilot within Excel. So in Excel, if you have Copilot, it is an AI tool that lets you do things, again, within Excel. You just open up Excel, click Copilot, and then you can ask it different things. So this isn't going to work. So basically, you could say, I want to highlight all the blank cells red, and I want to highlight all cells with certain text a certain way. Of course, this isn't going to work. You know what? I have a video we can watch on this. 1 second. Explorer. Guys, I'm ready for this because Excel has done this to me before. Okay, 1 sec. We'll just watch a quick video where I do the same thing. Thank you for your patience. Come on, Jeanette's computer, you can do it. There we go. Okay, so you click on Copilot. And then you ask it a question. So I want to highlight all cells, all blank cells red, so I can see where the problems are. When I do this, it comes up and it tells me what it's going to do, and then I can click on apply, and it applies it to what I have of my catalog in here, highlights them all red. If I don't like that, there's an undo button that I can click on, and it'll undo it and put it back. You can also say highlight all cells that have the word, let me pause this. So highlight all cells that have GA, like for Georgia, make them green with red font, and all the words that have the actual word Georgia, green with black font. So I can easily see where cells are that maybe I want to make them all the same. So it goes through and it does that. It's not perfect. It highlights magazine because it has GA. And could you do this yourself? Sure, 100%. Excel. But it is nice to have a feature when it's working that will easily find problems in your catalog. Oops, nope, I'm on the right side. Okay, so ideally, again, this hasn't quite happened yet, but what's going to happen hopefully with catalogs and OPAC? Right now, catalogs do something called lexical searching. So they do word matching. It looks for the words that match the most times. So an example is from this video called what is semantic search? Again, there's a link to the video at the bottom. Highly recommend. One of the questions is where was the last World Cup? And the answer that has the most matching keywords is the last World Cup was in Qatar, so 5. But this isn't perfect. So if you ask where was the last World Cup, and one of the answers was where in the world is my last cup of coffee, it would return that, which isn't correct. Lexical and keyword searching actually works pretty good for catalogs. If we were to search for copyright law, it would bring up anything that has copyright law in our 650 fields, anything that's been indexed, so like the title. But there are potential problems. So if you have a cataloger that's not great, I'm still fairly new to this, so I'm not great with the 650 fields. Or if you have a book that's similar but might not have the information somewhere in the MARC record. One example is business of intellectual property. It does have copyright information, copyright law, but it doesn't list it anywhere in index fields like the title, the 650 fields. So how would you get that to show up? One way of doing this is using embedding. So what embedding does is it takes different phrases and puts them on a chart. So IP litigation like patent, trademark, copyright law, all get grouped together in one section. Business like mergers and acquisitions, M&A litigation, private equity, and real estate all get grouped together. And then labor and employment, anti-discrimination and employment and labor all get grouped together as well. And you'll notice some of them are close together, like patent litigation and mergers and acquisitions litigation. So if we had copyright law, ideally what would happen is when we search for it, it throws it into this graph close to the IP law. So it'll return books not based on keywords, but based on things that are similar to it on this embedded chart. There are potential problems with this, right? So back to the semantic searching video, where was the last World Cup? Both answers, the previous World Cup was in Russia and the World Cup was in Qatar, are both pretty close on the embedded chart. So how do we fix this? We fix it by doing something called re-ranking. So you would have people train the system where you would give it questions and answers and say, these are good. And then give it questions and answers and say, these are bad, give it a low score. It's really important if you're doing ranking and training, you have multiple people with diverse backgrounds doing the training. Otherwise, you end up with a biased system. So making sure you have multiple people with diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, creating these rankings. So again, you get a diverse system. So back to the question, let's say we had a book called Intellectual Property Law for Business Lawyers. Does this fall in IP? Does this fall in business? Hopefully with AI, it would use your search history, your checkouts, but also the embedding and say, hey, this should be more in the IP section and give books related to IP, or this should be more in the business section, again, based on what AI pulls from your previous histories. So there are problems, right? Nothing is perfect, the bad and the ugly. We've all seen these, right? The the Pinterest fails. The idea is amazing, but the execution at home isn't always the best. So maybe it's because we need more practice with baking. Maybe it fails because we're not using the right ingredients. Maybe it's because the concept isn't quite right for home cooks. AI is the same way. It could be failing because we need more practice using AI, or maybe we're using the wrong AI or large language model. Or maybe it's because AI hasn't quite developed into something that's easily usable for cataloging or librarians. Um, the cost and maintenance of AI is a big problem. A lot of our vendors are building AI into their tools. We've all seen it with legal research. Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg all have tools. Academic research has tools. To start from scratch with that AI right now is ridiculously pricey and not quite feasible because there's so much that needs to go into it. Can we learn what to do and create it from scratch ourselves? Sure. There's a great website called Geeks for Geeks that talks about the different things you need to do to learn AI from scratch. Again, link at the bottom. I wouldn't recommend this. This is more for like people in the IT field, but I would recommend step one, understanding the basics of AI. On here, there's a link to Coursera. There's a class for free called AI for Everyone by Andrew Ng. Although University of Helsinki has also created something called the Elements of AI. That's definitely worth looking into. We did talk about some of the problems with hallucinations and bias. We saw how it hallucinated ISBN numbers. It can hallucinate authors. I've seen it hallucinate just everything. Bias, it can repeat bias and inappropriate language in dated books. It endorses books' claims inadvertently, can use outdated standards in LCSH, LCC, and DCC, and making sure there's diversity in training models. Finally, keeping up with changes. Archive.org is a great way to keep up with changes. Again, I've done this presentation a couple of times and I've had to rewrite it multiple times because things are changing on a daily basis with AI. Reddit has a machine learning subreddit that's worth looking into. Medium has something called Towards Data Science. Again, all the links are in the presentation that's going to go out after this. Finally, there's a great tweet by Ben Collier. It's not library related, but I felt like it summed up how I feel. Ben Collier said, I taught 2 classes this year on using large language models and sociological research. It's been great. Long 3-hour sessions, going through all the applications with students, practical exercises, etc. Every one of which we conclude is an expensive way of doing existing methods quite badly. Do I think AI is going to be amazing in the future? 100%. Do I think it's ready to use for catalogers? Not quite yet. Alma Ex Libris is doing a lot, and I'm excited to see what happens with that. But using like ChatGPT to create records, I don't think it's quite where it needs to be, although it's getting better day by day. All the information, I have links to where I pulled it from. So thanks for watching. My information's on here, J Mazer at Baker Law, or you can LinkedIn friend me. I don't know what it's called. It's just Jeanette Dash Mazer. Or if you're a call person, feel free to give me a call. I love talking on the phone. So thank you guys for attending. I'm gonna stop sharing. Did we have any questions?
Yes, our first question is, how does AI deal with Boolean and old search techniques? For example, if you put World Cup in quotes, will the results be better or would it not matter?
Ooh, good question. I don't know the answer. I can look into that for you for sure. Um, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, good question.
And our second question is, does Ex Libris take steps to address the bias concerns that Elizabeth York brought up?
Yes. I mean, they've recognized it, so they must have put something in place. Um, yeah, I don't know. Also a really good question. I will have to look into that as well. Again, they're changing on a day by day basis. So when I started the presentation, they were just working on it, and now they've actually released it. So they must have done something to address the bias before, because they understand it was there, and now they've released it into their product line. So hopefully.
Someone commented that Ex Libris did say they will be using authority control with the subject headings.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions? If not, feel free to use this information. I'd love to see more cataloging and AI presentations out there. So 100% steal it, redo it as your own. Like, I want to see this at AALL. I want to see like 10 versions of this at AALL. And you could pick like a single part of it, like just mark records, and you could talk about that for an hour. There's so much related to it. So thank you guys for attending. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, everyone. If you have other questions, Jeanette did give her contact information on the last slide. So the slides and recording will be coming out to y'all sometime in the next few days. So, keep an eye out for that. And, thanks on behalf of Technical Services, SIS, the private libraries, SIS, and also the University of Pennsylvania Law School, Biddle Law Library. And thank you, Jeanette. This was great. And thank you for, coming forward to say that you have this information to share with all of us. It's been excellent.
Thanks for attending.
All right. Bye, everyone.